guys, we're back again ahead of round 2 of Super Rugby, and I'm sitting here with Ryan Vrede just to look ahead to the 3 games involving South African teams. Obviously, Ryan, the big game is the Bulls and Hurricanes, and I think before we move into predictions, let's maybe just look at the influence of John Mitchell, who's obviously been a guy who's come in as the new head coach. A lot of talk about him and the revolution that he's been getting underway at the Bulls. From what I've heard out of Pretoria, a lot of positive news about him and the way he's looked to really bring a new dimension to the way things are done. Lots of meticulous planning going in. The players seem to have taken, so far at least in the preseason, to his ideas and the way of doing things. This will be our first look at the Bulls team under Mitch, and I think that'll be almost as big as the match itself, and the result will be how they perform.
Yeah, tactically, I mean, we'll see how they develop under him in time, but I think in terms of actually preparing the side in ways that don't include, sort of imposing his tactical philosophy and all those types of things, I've also been hearing good things. Look, at the end of his stint with the Lions, I was hearing that he was punishing players for underperformance in really juvenile ways. I suppose that comes with the job and the pressure of the job, especially at the franchise like the Lions, who at the time had a history of chronic failure. Subsequently, they've obviously turned that around, and so you kind of get that. But I think like anyone in life, you mature emotionally, you learn to deal with situations better, and I think the Bulls are going to reap the benefit of that process with John Mitchell. I think in time he'll be a good culture fit. Just from a man management perspective, I think there's only good things that I've heard. When Mitchell's at his best, he's looking after individuals as much as he's looking after the collective. And I think the type of players that the Bulls have, that type of approach will resonate with them, and we'll start to see results on the field. I said last week in the video that I'd done that I don't think the Bulls will be contenders this year. Certainly not title contenders, perhaps playoff contenders, but I don't think they've got the personnel to get that far. But I do think they'll be a lot better, and I think that's got a lot to do with the impact Mitch will have. With
Mitch, for sure, yeah. Like you said, I think it'll be interesting to see what he brings out of players like Warwick Gallant, Handré Pollard. I think close eye worth keeping on them on Saturday, obviously. But just to move into a prediction, I had a look, and the Bulls have only managed 1 win from the last 12 games against New Zealand opposition. And that kind of speaks volumes for just the struggles they've had, a couple of years, especially under Lewis and Ryan Vrede, where they really just stagnated. So I think just in terms of, obviously they would have probably preferred an easier game first up. Hurricanes.
It's a hard eat out first up.
Settled team that obviously is kind of really performed well over the last couple of years. Obviously an influencing factor. Probably not going to have Beauden Barrett starting the game. But I think just from my side, I look at that Canes team, very settled, a lot of veterans, a lot of All Blacks in that side. I'm not quite brave enough to pick the Bulls just yet. I think they might need a little settling in.
I'll take a really brave man,
so I'm going to go with Canes to come here and get a win of about 7 points.
Yeah, I think so. I think 7 might even be generous to the Bulls. It's a really hard eat out first up. One of the tournament's best sides for me. So I don't think it's going to be a blowout for the Bulls. But I do think that they're going to struggle. So you say 7. I'm probably leaning towards more 12 to 14 for the Canes. But I think there's a couple of kind of key areas that are going to decide this. I think we were going to speak about this later. But I think how the Bulls kick tactically is going to be critical. I think broken field is going to determine, or let me rather put it this way, how much broken field opportunity they give the Canes is going to be the determining factor. So obviously there's big pressure on their primary tactical kickers. So at scrum half, whoever starts there for them.
I think Andre Warner looks like the youngster they're going to back.
Right. And then Pollard and Gallant, like you mentioned earlier on, those 3 will be their primary tactical kickers. So if they can turn the Canes back 3 and put pressure on them defensively, to either try and run it out from the 22 or to kick, which is not necessarily strength of the Canes, then I think they can do well. But failing that, it's going to be a long afternoon for them, in my view.
Yeah, sure. And then the one game I think we'll be kind of keeping an eye on early on Saturday is the Stormers going up against the Waratahs in Sydney. I think we kind of got it right in terms of we thought they'd come away with a win against the Jaguars last weekend, but they were very scrappy.
Right.
And then there were some good sides in the first half, and they looked like they could run up a big score, grab a bonus point, and then they kind of fell away and really had to cling on for victory. I think we'll learn more now about them, having kind of blown out the cobwebs a little bit, and really get a sense of where they stand coming up against the Waratahs. But I mean, the Tars themselves, a team that's really struggled last year, just 4 wins they managed. I'm not quite sure where they stand, and we'll get maybe a clearer picture there as well.
Yeah.
But I look back at last year, I think if the Kings can beat the Waratahs in Sydney, I still think the Stormers might just have enough to do it themselves, maybe by 5 to 10.
Look, and if they don't, it's telling, you know. You can kind of excuse that result at Newlands last week with it being early in the competition, and there might be some cobwebs, and they were missing 1 or 2 key players. But you know, like if they've settled now, and like you say, like worse teams than the Stormers have gone there and won in Sydney. And there's nothing to suggest that the Waratahs are going to be exponentially better than they were in last season's Super Rugby competition. So they got to get a win in Sydney. With that said, this is the Stormers. I can see them blowing it. I can't see a scenario where they blow it, and then that will be telling for us. You know, they've got to progress from here. The Stormers can't regress on what they done last year. They qualified for a playoff place because of a flawed format, in my view. And so there's got to be a year-on-year improvement if we're going to continue to justify Flick as coach and the personnel around him and the players that he selects as being, you know, legitimate Super Rugby contenders, because they live in a massive market. I mean, you and I stay here, we know what it's like in Cape Town. People here are Stormers obsessed.
Sure.
But the product doesn't match the expectation. And those two have to come closer together, and that starts with a win in Sydney. I think they'll win in Sydney. I think they'll probably do 7 to 10. I'll probably go that for the Stormers. But if they don't, man, there's a problem.
Yeah, sure. And then just the other game, obviously the Jaguars going from Cape Town to Joburg now to play the Lions, and I think the Lions proved a lot of people wrong, or maybe doubters wrong, who are thinking they're not going to manage with Johan Ackerman having left, and wondering what Swayze might bring to the team. I think it was very much a template that we've grown very comfortable with the Lions. They're packed perhaps quite underrated, especially at scrum time. They really perform, and then the backs doing their thing. You know, Piwa Deontay looking like a very exciting young winger. Lionel Mapu was excellent. You know, Alton Yancey's had a good game, besides again the cold kicking, which remains a real concern that we have to consider. But you know, they weren't at their best, and I've just looked at some stats. They lost 4 lineouts. I mean, besides really dominating the scrums, that was a big problem area. Conceded as many as 18 turnovers, so they didn't quite have the same flow to their game, which will be something that they have to look at. But the Jaguars, they missed 34 tackles against the Stormers, and their discipline and their defence still is a problem that I think the Lions will exploit and get a big win, 15 to 20, I reckon. I think the Lions will really kind of punish them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that scoreline as well. And I think the Lions are in a different situation to what the Stormers were, for example. Yeah, you kind of hope the Stormers are going to. You kind of hope that was a bad run out for them, and they'll kind of move past that and find their rhythm and gain some momentum in the competition. Whereas I'm fairly certain that was the case with the Lions. You know, they weren't at their best, but it was the first game of the tournament. They were playing against a Shark side, who I think are the outside bet in terms of South African franchises, far better opposition than what the Stormers played. So there are mitigating factors for the Lions, but I don't see any problem. I don't see any problem for them. I was encouraged, like you were, that the transition seemed fairly smooth. Obviously, there's going to be tougher tasks ahead, tougher tests ahead against the elite sides in the competition, and then you kind of really see what this Lions team is about without Ackerman in the mix. But I feel like they were it was just a scrappy run out for them on Saturday. They'll blow this Jaguars team away.
Yeah, I'd agree. All right, great. Well, thanks, Ryan, and thanks, guys. Enjoy the rugby. Don't forget, 14 out of 15 teams in action. The Sharks are the only side that misses out. They have a bye. So, yeah, hopefully we get some good results, and enjoy the rugby. We'll see you next week.